Hello everyone. My greetings to each one of you. This is the sixth session on demand analysis. In the previous two sessions, you have understood the impact of increase in income of the consumer on demand for normal goods as well as on demand for inferior goods. I am Poonam Vohra from Microeconomics Learning Center. This session focuses on market demand for a commodity and factors that affect market demand. So let's understand. Market demand. Market demand for a commodity is the collective demand of all the individuals for that commodity at a given price within a given period of time. The market demand schedule is arrived at by adding the quantities demanded by each buyer in the market at various prices. Let's understand this aspect. It is assumed that in a market there are only two consumers, A and B. To understand market demand, it is assumed that there are only two consumers, A and B. Market demand would be demand by consumer A plus demand by consumer B. Price of commodity X is given in rupees. Demand by consumer A, demand by consumer B, and market demand in units can be found. When price is rupees 15 per unit, consumer A demands 10 units. Consumer B demands 20 units. So market demand is 10 plus 20, that is 30 units. Similarly, one can find market demand in each case. That is when price is 10, 9, 7 or 5. Correspondingly, demand by consumer A is 20, 25, 28 and 30. And by B is 40 units at price 10, 45 units at price 9, 50 units at price 7 and 55 units at price 5. So market demand at price rupees 10 is 20 plus 40, 60 units. At price 9 it is 25 plus 45, 70 units. At price 7 it is 28 plus 50, 78 units. And at price 5 it is 30 plus 55, 85 units. One can plot all the individuals as well as market demand curve by taking into account market demand on x-axis in units and price on y-axis. While taking market demand in units, one has to take care that scale has to be taken in such a manner that units demanded by an individual consumer as well as units demanded by the entire market can be plotted. So one can plot quantity demanded by consumer A at different prices. These values are then plotted. By doing so, one gets a downward sloping demand curve, A's demand. Then one can plot quantity demanded by consumer B by plotting these values. And one finds once again a downward sloping demand curve as B's demand. Finally, one can plot these values as market demand and one finds that market demand is also downward sloping but is much wider as compared to the previous two demand curves. So a market demand curve is the graphical presentation of the amount all individuals in a market are willing to buy at a given price within a time period, assuming all other factors are held constant. So market demand is a horizontal summation of all individual demands at a given price. There are various factors that influence market demand. Let's understand. Since market demand is derived from individual demand, all factors that affect individual demand also affects market demand. That is, quantity demanded of commodity X is a function of price of the commodity itself, price of related goods, income of the consumer, tastes and preferences of the consumers. In addition to these factors, market demand is also influenced by number of consumers. Since market demand is the summation of individual demands, higher the total population in the market, higher will be the demand. Less will be the total population in the market, less will be the demand for that commodity. Market demand also gets affected by the income distribution. That is, if income distribution favors rich, then demand for goods usually consumed by the rich is likely to be high. But if income distribution favors poor, then demand for goods usually consumed by poor will be high. Market demand is also affected by the future expectations of the consumers. If due to some reasons consumers expect that in near future the prices are going to rise, then in present there would be an increased demand for such goods. But if they expect prices to fall in near future, then in present the demand for those goods will be less. Finally, the market demand also gets affected by the climatic conditions. That is, if it is summertime, there would be more demand for things like soft drinks. But if it is winters, then there would be more demand for woolens. So, there are various factors that affect market demand for a commodity. Assess yourself and identify the correct statement. Statement A. The demand for commodity always increases with the prices of other goods. B. Expansion in demand leads to upward movement along the same demand curve. C. Market demand is flatter than individual demand curves. And D. The exception to law of demand is true for individual small market. Please check your answer. The correct answer is statement C. That is, market demand is flatter than the individual demand curves simply because market demand is the summation of all individual demands, and diagrammatically it is the summation shown on the x-axis. So it is flatter. I hope you have understood the concept of market demand for a commodity and the factors that affect market demand. I am sure you will be able to present market demand diagrammatically too. With this, the session comes to an end. The next session would focus on law of demand. Till then, keep reading, keep learning, and keep practicing.